third video of this part where we actually migrate the Rent Your Stuff application to Jmix 2. And last time we left off with the infrastructure project, so we basically took all the files and ended up with updated infrastructure files in the Gradle directory and so on. But when we look at our compiler, then it will actually say that there are a lot of problems. And so this is what we will now focus on in the next few minutes in this video and take a look on how to resolve those. So first of all, I will just go ahead and build this project, and then it should actually show me some of the problems that we are facing. Okay, so let's take a look. So the first one here is that there are imports missing of Java X validation and Java X persistence. So the reason for that is that with this Spring Boot 2 to Spring Boot 3, we switched this namespace of those Java X to Jakarta. And so what we can now do is basically search for this particular string here, Java X.validation. And basically replace it with the new equivalent, which is Jakarta.validation. And so here you'll see like a lot of those, and I will just for now replace them all. And this way I will basically get rid of the majority of the compiler errors. And the same thing we will do for Java X persistence. So here I will also switch it accordingly, so that afterwards we should have the correct imports. By the way, like if you use this approach from Jmix Studio to upgrade, like use this wizard to upgrade from 1.5 to 2, I think those imports will be actually migrated as well automatically, so you don't have to do that on your own. Okay, so then let's just run the compiler again. And basically what I'm now doing here is relying on the compiler to guide me through the process of what is actually still broken. So what we see next here is this enum class reference that is apparently not there anymore. And this was a change from Jmix 1 to Jmix 2. It's also documented, if I recall correctly, in the changelog. So basically it was, if I recall correctly, it was a mistake to put it into this impl package here, because it's actually something that is exposed to the outside, like to users of the Jmix framework. So this is why they now switched it to only enum class without this impl package. So let's get rid of this as well. And here you can see now everything looks good. So let me just then go ahead and build another time. And what you can see here now is like a lot of those classes that are actually related to the UI. So customer edit, product browse and whatever. And the approach that I will for now take, and this you have to decide on your own if this makes sense in your case or not. So we have this, this is just a branch on our repository. So I can go and look at the old source code. So this means for me that I will just completely get rid of the whole UI layer right now, so that I can get back to a compilable state, and so that I can run my empty application very fast. That I don't have to now fix all the UI problems alongside with the entity problems. So, but this might not be applicable to everyone, so you have to see if this actually makes sense in your case. In my case, I will now go ahead and do that. And since I put them always under the screen directory here, I will just completely get rid of those directories. So this would be here under customer, under order, and under product. And in this view directory, I only have the standard generated views, which we already in the last video recreated basically. So then let's do the same thing for the XML files, because they will also change when we switch to Jmix 2. And with that, we should be ready to give it another try. And what you can see here now is that the production code already compiled, so there's no problems left. But in the source code of the tests, there are like still a lot of problems. And this is mainly the case, like if we look at this, for example, this is also a test that relies on Jmix 1.5 and the corresponding Vaadin 8 APIs. So in order to resolve that, I will actually apply the same pattern and kill all, or like remove all the screen tests, or like this web integration tests, and we will rebuild them in the next videos then. And the reason for that is, once again, that I actually want to run all my integration tests that are not UI related, but I cannot do that until the compiler errors are gone. So this is why for now I'll just get rid of them. And this will be under order, under product, and under customer. And then here in the UI section of the test support directory, you also have a couple of helper classes that we have to rebuild, because they also heavily rely on Vaadin 8 APIs or Jmix 1 UI APIs. So I will completely get rid of this UI directory now and then start the build process again. Good, so then there is one last thing missing, if I see it here correctly, which is this this Spring Bean that we created manually, or override it for our test configuration. This for this very special test where we programmatically basically perform one liquid-based migration, and for this we have to set those tags in order to use them. I'm not 100% sure on what this change is about, so we could look this up later, but what I found is it's also possible to just remove it and not have that anymore. And because of the in respect to the time, I will just run it like this now. But yeah, that might be something that we then have to look up. So here, like going into the liquid-based properties and perhaps read a little bit about the docs, what changes in liquid-base and so on and so forth. Okay, good. So as you can see here now, the build process, it's already running. And with that, we are already good to go. So this means what I can now do is I can start my application. And then there was one thing missing from last time apparently, which is that there is a problem with the changelog file from Liquibase. So Jmix Studio now tells me that there's something wrong, and I can fix it here by using this wizard. In this case, I will not do that and first look at the changelog my own. And here you can already see the problem. So there is no UI data dependency anymore in our build Gradle file. So this is why we also cannot reference this changelog anymore. And instead what we have to do is to use this flow UI data directory and use the corresponding changelog. And this is basically what this this message there also just told us. So if I run this now again, it will actually say that it will execute like everything that is missing. Unfortunately, I already tried this out before, so this is why my database is now has already executed this particular script. So this is why it doesn't happen here anymore. And only one other change that is still not applied. Normally it would actually come and say, hey, I want to update now this, or like basically execute this flow UI data changelog file. So we can just now go ahead without this because it's already there. And the other thing is that normally when you do this for the first time in your database, then it will also ask you to get rid of those old tables that were represented in this UI data changelogs. This is something about the filter configuration and like how it was basically persisted in Jmix 1. So this means there is also some kind of a breaking change here going on, because if you want to keep those those filter configurations and the UI settings, and because you might have a lot of users that already rely on this data or this settings basically, then it would be something that we would have to, or someone would have to look into and see how this is then actually possible to migrate. I would assume it's not like super easy to do, because we can take a brief look into the database. Yeah, okay, so I think we can skip that for now and only rely on the fact that we basically now start the application and take a look at this as well. So this is the running application now. In the beginning, it shows some front-end building process that is happening with Vaadin 24, but this is the first Vaadin UI. It was in the version of 24, and we can now once again log in. And since I removed all the UIs from the previous 1.x, it means that we are basically up with an empty application again. And at least the stuff that we generated, for example, this user list, is now present, and also the multi-tenancy, management UIs are basically there. Okay, good. So this means for now we have at least a running application. And the next thing is then to run our test to make sure that everything is covered. And I will basically start with the product storage test and just take a look if this actually works. So let's just run that. We have to have the Postgres database in place. And if we look at this, there's one problem with the test. So let's take a look. So there is a problem with starting the Spring application in this test context. And it says there's a dependency, or there's a problem in this order lines bean. And if we scroll here to the very end, it says requested bean is currently in creation. Is there an unresolvable circular reference? And when we take a look at those two classes, we'll actually see that there is some problem. So if we go to the order lines, this is this test class here in this test directory here, this test support, test data, and it helps us creating a couple of entities in the database and so on. And what you can see here now is that this is a component, and it relies on another component, which is this orders component, which creates orders. And it's actually, if we take a look at where it is used, you can see that in this default data, it creates an order by using this orders dependency. Now, if we go to the orders dependency, you can actually see that it has a dependency to this order line dependency, which makes up this circular dependency. And this is a problem in Spring Boot 3. By default, they have configured it so that it's not allowed anymore. In our case, we are quite lucky, because if I search for this order lines, then this is just another method. This is not the dependency. Turns out that I just accidentally created this dependency, but it's not actually used. So in our case, we can just remove this dependency here, and it will be just fine. In case it is actually used and we have really a circular dependency between those two classes, there are different options. So first of all, you have the option to reconfigure Spring Boot to allow this behavior again, or alternatively, and this is probably the better approach, to really work out those circular dependencies, meaning that you create, for example, like another bean that is actually the ones that both are referencing, and then basically resolving this circular dependency. So there are various techniques on how to achieve that. But in our case, it's actually quite easy, because I just needed to get rid of this dependency declaration here. So if we run this test now again, then hopefully it should work. And with that, So let's just go to our product storage test here. Okay, so you can see now the tests are still green, and they are actually, performing, like storing a product and with some default data, and then check that the ID is not null and whatever, or like, check that the prices are correctly set and so on and so forth. And this is basically also this beauty of this test suite, because normally when you create those tests, at the point where you create them, this is not where you need them, right? But it's actually you're doing that, or basically you're doing it yourself or your team a favor for the situation in 6 months or 2 years, where some change happens, or like in our case some migration or like update of the dependencies happen. And for this, it's then very good if we just have the capability to run all tests again and see that it's actually still working, at least the stuff that we now defined. So if I run here all tests, then I would hope that all of the tests are actually now resolvable, and that the compiler errors are gone, and also that the tests are actually correctly being executed. And as we see here, this is the case. So we have 34 tests that actually have been running successfully, and which gives us now a very good safety net to assure that even after this migration to Jmix 2, there is like working domain model again, or working business logic. Okay, so yeah, and I mean the remaining part now, of course, this also is partially true because I removed a lot of those tests here before, right? So that are relevant for the UI. But this is just fine, because in the next video we are going to tackle then a couple of those tests. We are basically building the UI from scratch, one by one, and then also building up the tests and see which difference we actually need. And for this we will then look into the old test and basically compare on what we have to change. Good, but with that, I think this video covers everything. So we have now basically a working environment on the domain model and the business logic layer, and we also got our test running again. So then thank you for watching, and then we will see us in the next video when it comes to building the first UI.